You might have heard there were some arrests at the Capitol over the weekend. I think there were police and riot gear with weapons, German Shepherd, 31 people arrested. I'm just wondering, do you think that that was an overreaction?
Well, first of all, I encourage people, if they've got strong views for or against legislation while they're up here, come on, let us know what you think. Write letters, send emails, come visit your delegates, get the permits, and speak your mind at the bell tower. There's been some great exhibits of democracy this session on a number of bills. I participated in one with almost 1,000 people that were in favor of school choice. A lot of young kids, a lot of parents. One of the largest rallies of the entire session. We encourage that. I can tell you just personally, having had a daughter in Iraq, when there were 70% of the Iraqis that came out to vote, and seeing women on the TV crying in the streets with their blue thumbs because they got to taste democracy for the first time in 25 years. You know, we take it too much for granted in America. To me, it's very disappointing. When we got elected, only 45% of the people came out to vote in our election. But yet 70% come out to vote in Iraq when they have to worry about IEDs and snipers. So I very much encourage people to let their voices be heard on all these issues. At the same time, I think we've had a regulation here for, 40 years or so that sets the parameters for how you obtain permits and where demonstrations can take place. To my knowledge, that place is always limited to the bell tower. All I can say about Saturday is I wasn't here. I was actually enjoying watching the CAA basketball tournament with most of my family. The Capitol Police are in charge of Capitol grounds. They're outstanding professionals. They're well-trained. In fact, most of the legislators up here know them and see them when they come out of all the buildings. They know these people well. The state police come in if they're asked. But that's solely a question for Colonel Pike and Colonel Flaherty about what they think is necessary in order to maintain order. I think anytime they think there's going to be big crowds, they always have backup presence. But again, that is solely a decision for the law enforcement leaders as to what they think. Now, what I think is very disappointing, though, is, and I'll let the Lieutenant Governor comment, but I understand today on the floor of the Senate that we witnessed something that I haven't heard of in the 21 years that I've been up here. And that is legislators taking to the floor of the Senate of Virginia and essentially attacking our law enforcement officers for doing their job. I mean, their job is to enforce the law. There's a permit that outlines what people can and can't do. Most people honor the conditions of those permits. And our law enforcement officers are simply tasked with making sure that those terms are enforced. So you have the Senate Democratic Caucus, who won't even fund law enforcement this session, who refuse to pass a budget to fund our sheriffs and our police officers and our ADC officers and our teachers and our construction crews. And yet they want to take to the floor and attack those very same law enforcement officers that they won't fund. I mean, I'm incredulous with that approach to government. Lieutenant Governor, you were there first. You can have some other comments.
Well, I would just, two quick thoughts to add. First of all, I would reiterate, everybody has a right to protest. That is an important part of who we are as Americans and Virginians, and we encourage people to come to the Capitol and let their voices be heard. But there is a process by which you go about doing that. And if in the process of doing that, you violate the provisions of your permit, you violate the law, and you refuse to respond to specific orders of law enforcement, chances are you're going to get arrested. And it doesn't matter who does that. It's going to work the same way. Everybody has a right to protest. Nobody has a right to violate the law or ignore specific instructions from law enforcement authorities. Now, as far as the comments today on the floor of the Senate, I've been in the Senate as a member and as Lieutenant Governor for 16 years. I have never heard members of the Senate take to the floor of the Senate to attack Virginia's law enforcement professionals. And that's exactly what happened today. We had members of the state Senate standing up talking about a disgraceful police presence. Now that is their quote, a disgraceful police presence. We have never seen that happen before. I think those comments were over the top. I think those comments were inappropriate. And I believe the senators who made those comments owe an apology to Virginia's law enforcement professionals. They owe an apology to the Capitol Police, and they owe an apology to the state police, because these guys were doing their job as they saw it. And none of us have the right to put ourselves in their position if we weren't there, if we don't know all the facts, if we don't know what they did. And that's why it is important that you talk to the head of the Capitol Police, you talk to the head of the state police, get all the facts about this. I think you will find that they did what they did for the reasons I've mentioned. Everybody has a right to protest. Nobody has a right to violate the law or to ignore law enforcement instructions. But to stand up on the floor of the Senate and attack our law enforcement professionals for political reasons, this wasn't a policy attack, it was a political attack, is inappropriate. And that is not something that I think we have ever seen before in Virginia. My hope is they will seriously rethink that and apologize to the very brave men and women of the Capitol Police and the state police who are simply doing their jobs.
Yeah, let me say, we can follow up on that. It's late in the session. This is my 21st session. And I remember being in the legislature, and you get 6, 7, 8, 9 weeks into these long sessions, been away from your family a long time, and you get worn out. There's a lot of things still left to do. I know that there have been a number of hard-fought contests on legislation this year, particularly in the Senate, divided 2020. Senate governors cast to 17, 18 or so tie-breaking votes, which tells you the overwhelming majority of bills have been able to get through with bipartisan support. But when you get to the point where your anger over losing elections and your anger over not getting the committee assignments that you want spills over into refusing to pass a budget and to taking to the floor to tear down our incredibly talented and brave law enforcement officers, it really has crossed the line. It really is way over the top. And so I joined Lieutenant Governor in asking those legislators who probably after they said what they said realized they were wrong. I call on them to apologize. Heck, I've been doing this 21 years. I've made mistakes. I've realized when I was wrong. I've apologized for things. And I think it takes a statesman to be able to stand up and do that. So I would hope that they realize how far out of line they are when they say things like that about our police officers. Joe.
Some have suggested, again, going through the protest over the weekend, that the presence that was there is greater than both in terms of the equipment that the law enforcement officers had on and the number of those who were present was greater than we've seen for any number of other public demonstrations. Some on the Senate floor this morning suggested that was, I'm paraphrasing here, but essentially kind of squelching people's rights. Are you concerned about the message that sends about Virginia on this particular topic? Because we've seen many other, as you mentioned, many other demonstrations by people who feel strongly about particular issues, and at least there doesn't appear to be the visible presence of such a robust police presence.
Well, I can say, Julian, you'll have to, again, I would refer that to Colonel Flaherty and Colonel Pike. They and they alone make the decisions about what they believe is appropriate.
Governor, if I could go back to Saturday for just a second, was it ever brought to your...
I don't really, there's not much I can say. I wasn't here.
Yeah, I know there was so much internet chatter that you ordered the arrest and removal. Was that ever brought to your attention? And if so, what was your response?
Absolutely not. See, that's the problem. And that's been the problem for about a month up here. It's people saying all kinds of things of which they have no direct information. And saying things that are just flat not correct. All the decisions regarding law enforcement operations in the Commonwealth are made by the people that we train and we trust to make those decisions. I appoint Steve Flaherty. The legislature appoints Colonel Pike. Colonel Pike is the one that is responsible for operations on Capitol Square. That's Capitol Police. That's what they do. So, again, I would only suggest to you that because those operations were headed up by the Capitol Police who report to the legislature, that you certainly can talk to the chief of the Capitol Police or you can talk to the legislature because they are the ones that actually supervise the operations of the Capitol Police. Go ahead, you get the last one.
With all the commotion surrounding it, I'm just wondering if your position on the ultrasound bill is altered in any way, or do you plan to sign it?
Well, we just got the bill. It's undergoing legal review, and I've got, I believe, 7 days to act on it, and we'll have an announcement sometime soon. As soon as that legal review is done, then I get it to me, and I'll have appropriate comments at the time. Thank you all for coming.